Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. I am Richard Manfredi. And as regular listeners of the show will note, we are doing things just a little bit differently. We did this last year. It was a thing that we did that turned out really well. So I think it's going to be an annual wacky holiday tradition where usually it's Michael Winfield and myself. Say hello, Michael.
Hello.
Usually it's the two of us who are debating against each other about a certain topic. And Jeff Hopkins over there.
Hello.
On his throne.
Hello.
Hello.
In my row with my gavel, playing with my gavel.
A little bit, put a little bit more squiggy in that.
Hello.
There we go. Nailed it. Usually Jeff is the person who breaks our, kind of decides who's right and who's wrong and puts us all in our place. So sometimes we think it's fun to let Jeff be on the hot seat and have to come up with stuff. So this week's topic is the Mount Rushmore of Florida. Jeff?
Yes, sir.
You thunk about this.
Yeah, I think it.
Why?
Well, I think...
Why?
We live in California, and California has been the destination of like westward expansion, and I grew up in Missouri, and Missouri is kind of like the beginning of the frontier. But Florida is really the final frontier for most of the United States. One of my choices, I won't really kind of talk about it, but the insanity that comes out of Florida, I think, the insanity that comes out of Florida, one might think that this is a America in a microcosm, this no holds barred place where anything goes, and you can succeed by the strength of will alone because there's really no law or order or anything that will keep you from doing what you want to. And the diversity of some of the cities in Florida, it's just a crazy place, and crazy stuff comes out of it.
So if I'm not mistaken, if I know a little bit about the history of Florida, I think we purchased it from the Spanish in exchange for some Cuban sandwiches. Is that correct?
There's some Cubano cigars, too, I think.
I believe that's how that worked. All right, so let's get to it, Michael. You're up first.
Okay, my first choice is the Art Deco of Miami.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Cool.
I thought we'd start it with a little bit of culture and class. And when I think of Florida, the first thing I think of is kind of that, nouveau kind of...
Pink.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Pastel colors. Mm-hmm. But then because it's Florida and because it's Miami, just, riddled with neon.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't just leave it with like, those kind of streamlines and that kind of...
the modern curved surface, almost like a car going through.
The tropical kind of motifs that kind of, decorate the outsides of like the big famous hotels along.
We stayed at the Fontainebleau once there in that
along Ocean Drive.
Yeah,
and I don't know. It's the first thing I thought of. I think it's so iconic for them and for that city, and that was the very first thing I thought of. And I thought, well, there's a reason why it has to be. It's kind of like they took like the old, the Deco style from the 20s and 30s, and they just like, you know what, we're going to make it our own.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
It sort of it looks like whenever I see photos of Miami, and I've never been to Miami, but...
Yeah, I've never been to Florida either. I as like a stopover on like a...
flight to Puerto Rico, I'm guessing, or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It looks like if you took the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas and said, you know what? Needs to be a little more garish.
Yeah.
If we could do more with it, make it a little bit more over the top, that would be great.
I think the climate being very friendly to architectural experiment, unlike the Midwest or, say, the Northeast, where you have to build to withstand the climate, the elements. Florida, the architecture, you really just kind of do whatever. And I think that...
Yeah, the hurricanes just like whip right off.
Yeah, hurricanes notwithstanding.
All of the architecture is basically just designed so it can be like just put right back up in place. Like if you knock a Lego. Actually, people don't know this. Most Miami structures are made out of Legos.
Actual Lego.
Yeah.
I think as the prior to Vegas and maybe kind of on par with Atlantic City, Florida as a tourist and vacation destination luring people from the Northeast, made it so that architects were paid great amounts to tell a story with architecture of fantasy and extravagance. And I think that was the reason, not just hotels, but like extravagant ballrooms and restaurants. So yeah, that's a cool choice.
Thanks.
Okay.
Going along well so far, I think. Look.
Richard, you're good at this.
Under my stewardship so far, I think we're 1 for
Yes.
1. So good job, Michael.
Yes.
Jeff, try not to screw it up.
Okay. My general first thought was Florida Man, the meme inspired by the multitude of headlines.
Also on my
Is
list.
it really?
Yeah.
Of course it is.
And I had fun kind of realizing I have seen this on like Imgur, but I didn't realize that Florida Man was a Twitter handle where a guy was kind of collecting like Florida Man scared silly over baby alligator on doorstep, Florida Man busted in illegal butt injection practice, Florida Man arrested for giving people wedgies, Florida Man kills wife after she refuses to cook hamburger.
Florida Man builds mini car for his pet parrot. We should have just gone back and forth.
I love it.
It should have been the Rushmore of Florida, man.
Totally
We kind of screwed this up a little bit. Our apologies to the listeners.
And now there's a documentary in 2015. A filmmaker, Sean Dunn, released a doc called Florida Man, which features interviews with eccentric Florida residents. So I hope we didn't do the exact same research on this, Michael. Maybe we did.
No.
Well, my presumption is that the Florida Man is in the memes kind of now the same as Soviet or post-Soviet Russia, where a lot of the memes you see about Russia are like dash cam videos or guys nearly shooting their heads off with guns or ridiculous shackatecture or bad attempts to solve problems with a vehicle or something like that. And so that seems to be collected in the same.
You see, I thought you were going with the much like the Soviet Union. There's like a strain of like Yakov Smirnoff type jokes, except for Florida. You know, in Florida, alligator eat you.
Yeah.
And then everyone kind of goes, what?
Yeah.
But do you eat alligators? What's the flip here? I don't get it.
My thought for this was, if you can tell me any story about Florida and I will 100% believe you.
Yeah.
As long as you couch it as like it happened in Florida. Oh, this parrot ate an alligator, or a man. It's usually a guy. It's some crazy guy.
Local man, yeah.
It's on drugs. It doesn't matter. Like, for whatever reason, I think, you kind of touched upon it earlier, Jeff, in that it's a very eclectic state.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a singular personality. You can't just peg it down as one thing. It's like everything at the same time, and so anything is possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why Florida. Is it just because there's a geographical sort of, look, it's the little like it looks like the dangly part on the back of your throat. That's what it is to the United States.
Yeah.
And if you're snoring, maybe you can get it snipped off, but we can't do that to Florida.
Yeah.
But it's like off on its own, and it's closer to like Cuba than it is most other states. Is it just that there's like a geographical oddity about it that kind of makes people attracts a certain
Does Florida
person?
not have a state tax? Because I think there was something like Nevada and Florida share similarities. Okay.
It doesn't. You don't get
property tax.
The only reason I think about this is like basketball salaries,
right, or baseball salaries.
Yeah, like people that like sign as free agents
get like a bonus basically because they don't have to pay income tax.
That's the only way I would remembered it was because of LeBron James going to Miami.
I do think that the heartiness of an individual in Florida kind of reminds me of somebody who might live in the outback, somebody who is willing to live in a place where a reptile can come out of your backyard and just kill you and eat you, or the elements can come wipe out anything you have.
It seems very geographically isolated, even though it's connected to the rest of the United States.
Yeah.
The northern part is like, it's just like all swampy when it's connected to Georgia, and then the middle part, I think, is mostly swamps, and then you get down to the bottom, and there's like just all swamps, and then it's also surrounded by water.
Yeah,
beachside swamps, which is hard to do.
I have some of the. My wife lived in Florida for a while, and some of the best times I had were in Florida. I spent a summer in Florida when I was in high school, living with my best friend, and he was a middle to poor student in the Kansas. I was about to say the United States. He was a middle to poor student at our school in Kansas. He called me when he arrived in Florida and said, at this school, I'm on the honor roll. I'm like the president of
Oh,
the
no.
school now. I'm the A++ student, and I'm like captain of the baseball team. I'm like the best kid there.
Are you suggesting, sir, that Miami and Florida in general does not have the best educational
Invest
system?
in their education system?
Are you saying that Miami University is not right up there with Harvard and Yale and Colgate? It's not known as the Ivy League school of the South. Is that what you're suggesting?
Their bikini scores are way up there high. Really high scoring in the bikini contest.
Is that what the SAT is
The
for?
SATs.
Bikini aptitude test.
String bikini aptitude test. So
for whatever reason, like I think because it's so eclectic, it allows for all of these kind of weirdos to pop themselves up every now and then. You're like, oh, only in Florida. You don't really hear that. Like I'm sure that there is like an elitism about California,
Right.
but it's not like we're as far away as anything else. But you don't hear that sort of we're just kind of pegged as being surfer
Snobs or
Yeah,
surfers
yeah,
or whatever.
or whatever California cuisine is.
whatever that is.
Literally whatever
Yeah.
that is. So let's start, so what makes up the ideal Florida man's story? So there's got to be, let's see,
The law's involved. It's got to be arrested for something.
Partial nudity,
partial nudity.
masturbating while on bath salts or something.
There has to
some
be
sort of drug issue usually.
So, an animal of like tropical or of like obscure.
Or swamp.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something from the swamp or something like that was imported from Belize.
Yeah.
Usually drugs, and it usually involves someone with a lot of tattoos.
It could be weaponry.
Could be weaponry.
Unfortunate, and I'm not happy to say this might be kind of some domestic altercation or something like that. I think in mobile housing,
Yeah,
perhaps.
very
yeah,
possible.
an obscure vehicle. If a tank was involved,
Yeah.
or like a modified tank.
Yeah.
A string bikini tank.
Mhm. Yeah.
And usually and very often it's somebody trying to pull a grift or a scam.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that, or somebody thinking they can do something sort of better than whatever the rules and laws of safety require.
Yeah.
This usually winds up like with somebody's like, propane tank exploding and they're double wide.
That place is dangerous. Did Bugs Bunny have it right when he tried to saw it off and send it off to Cuba or
That's
send it
what
off to South America? Like was he onto something back then?
That's what I was saying. It's just like your uvula, just sort of like just snip that
Yeah.
damn thing off, and you will not snore anymore. All right, so that was a joint choice for the both of you. So Jeff, go ahead with your second choice.
Okay.
I did that right.
That was pretty great.
Thumbs
great.
up.
That was pretty great. I never do it right. You did great.
I'll screw it up later. Don't worry about it.
Okay. In my childhood, my first crush, my first kind of platonic crush was also my first kind of romantic crush as a television character. And this was a young woman who was hailing on a show in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and that was Jeannie from I Dream of Jeannie. So Cocoa Beach, Florida was this magical place where astronauts found genies, and then they went off to their job as spacemen at the nearby Cape Canaveral or Space Center. And so I loved Cocoa Beach, Florida. I wanted to go to Cocoa Beach, Florida. And I think it was a fictitious place until after the show, and then maybe they actually made it a real place.
Oh no, I think that show is
Is it
actually
real?
a documentary
A documentary on the space program.
based on actual facts and court cases.
Yeah.
So yes.
Well, if it was a documentary, then they would show Larry Hagman drunk off his ass all the time, and Barbara Eden crying off camera.
I didn't realize that was how he came upon Jeannie, that he found her on the beach.
I think
Hey,
he
whoa,
splashed-
family show. That's not the type of wishes we're talking about here, boys.
I think he. Well, I was about to say splashdown, but that's
That's
this is a
also
family show.
bad.
I think he his capsule. Okay,
Yeah, we're
that's
clear.
okay.
We're clear on
His
that.
capsule found purchase on a deserted island, I think, in which there was a bottle, and she was inside of it, and he rubbed it. He rubbed one out.
Oh, there we go.
He rubbed one out, and that one was her. So I recall the romanticizing the idea. So we recall that time before puberty hit us in what we thought about women, and whatever I thought about Jeannie as a character had nothing to do with her attractiveness. It had to do with the fact that she was magic and could bring me anything I wanted. She could make me a million candy bars, or she could,
Oh, bless you.
bring
Candy
me anything I wanted to. And then I remember that time where I turned on I Dream of Jeannie and started thinking a lot different. I had these other feelings about
12-year-old Jeff
12-year-old
suddenly was not thinking about Mars bars anymore.
But I realize this is peripherally about Florida, but my lady lived in Florida. So
Did they was he a pilot in Cape Canaveral? I'm sorry.
He was an astronaut.
Yeah, okay, that's what it was.
yeah,
Did
Major Tony Nelson would just go off to his job as being an astronaut. Maybe he worked in as a tester on things. I don't know. I don't remember them talking that much about the actual.
I guess it doesn't
missions and
matter.
things like
The
that.
important thing was that I guess
Yeah.
she's a genie.
Yeah,
And the people are dreaming of her.
One thing that I discovered during the research of this was that real astronauts would never even live anywhere near Cape Canaveral. They bring them in for liftoffs and things like that. They don't live there. But also,
Also genies don't exist. So
What?
Details. But one thing I loved about that show as a kid was I do recall that Jeannie 2 was a brunette with a green harem dress, was also played by Barbara Eden.
What?
There was a time when she played her twin in this, and
Oh, of course they did. Every episode, every show. Of the
Every
60s
show
did that.
had
Gilligan's
twin.
Island had a twin.
yeah, and what I also thought was interesting, and this is all kind of side note about this show.
This is all side note.
All
Jeff.
of this whole podcast.
This
is
whole
side
podcast,
note.
90+ episodes of
Welcome to
side
Off
note.
Topic, where we pick a topic and we don't talk about it. We talk about what's off that topic. I Dream of Jeannie was one of the supernatural shows, like Bewitched. And there was a guy, James Henderson, was fired from Bewitched when they found out he was writing, his side job was writing for I Dream of Jeannie. And he wrote the episode about the twin.
So we've talked a little bit about how Florida is a eccentric place and
Mhm.
how it's also an industrious place because it has a huge economy. But then also they've decided that in spite of all of the weather, the hurricanes and the tropical nature, they're going to build a place where you launch rockets
Yeah.
and land rocket. Or
Yeah.
I guess they touch down in Houston normally. They don't usually. Do they touch down in Cape Canaveral? Probably.
Don't they touch down in the water?
They
Or
used to.
they used
Well,
to.
not anymore.
No, they don't
Nobody
touch
uses
down
it
at all.
anymore. But I
But
think
it's
it
strange-
used to be Cape Canaveral.
It's
I
strange.
believe.
It's such like a volatile place. So let's put some of the most expensive and dangerous rockets.
Yeah.
And potentially constantly delay
Mhm.
sending those rockets into space
Mhm.
because of the weather.
Yeah.
Well, you know the reason why they do that? It's because if it blows up, who gives a shit? It's Florida. I believe that's why
Yeah,
they
that checks
put it
out.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're at the halfway point of the show now. This is where the calming music comes in. Because I'm going to talk to you about audible.com. It's where you can download more than 150,000 titles for your Audible delights. Seriously, guys, I listened to Audible before they started sponsoring our show. I've been a member for years. It's kind of what's got me through so many road trips, whether it's with the family or not with the family. It's incredible. Because I'm too lazy to read books, let's be honest. But if I'm in the car for hours at a time, whether or not it's a road trip or just driving around here in Los Angeles when I've forgotten my hoverboard to kind of surf over the city, I need something to listen to make my ears smarter. And that's where Audible comes in. Like I said, more than 150,000 titles, including this one that's very relevant to our show today. Best State Ever. A Florida Man Defends His Homeland by Dave Barry. So you guys know Dave Barry. He's been a columnist for about 150 years. Looks a lot like Ken Burns and is also very funny. So that's just one of the many titles that you could find on audible.com. Make sure you go to audible.com. Go to audible.com/Rushmore and get a free trial. And we are back.
Woohoo!
I'm doing the math here. So is bop, 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 bop. Michael, you're up for your third pick.
My third pick is the Okefenokee Swamp.
Oh, wow.
It is the
Little
swamp.
pogo.
Man, we're really hitting the current topics right now.
Listen.
Nothing says pop culture more than fucking Walt Kelly.
You got a hashtag Okefenokee.
This is the swamp that I think of when I think of Florida. I don't think of the stupid Everglades.
No.
They're
Oh.
overrated.
More like Neverglades, am I right?
I'm high-fiving.
Come on, somebody.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all I get.
I
I'll
say,
high five myself. Yeah.
send this guy to the Okefenokee swamp. Fan boats, gators, swamp people. I assume Swamp Thing too.
Yeah, he's there.
I'm sure, yeah.
Adrienne Barbeau's big old hooters are there, too.
She has owls.
She has owls?
Hooters? She has owls?
Yes.
I'm confused.
But mostly for two reasons. One, the most minor reason. I recall an episode of the Scooby-Doo Mysteries where...
The Scooby-Doo Mysteries.
Yeah, where they...
They called it that, but...
It was something like that.
No, I think that's right.
It was on a CBS, like 8 o'clock at night. Your grandma would watch Scooby-Doo Mysteries.
Yeah, it had Angela Lansbury.
Yeah.
And Andy Griffith was in it.
Peter Falk.
Yeah.
Listen, there was an episode where they headed to the Okefenokee swamp, mostly because I think
It sounds funny.
Wednesday Addams went missing.
Oh. What?
It was like a team up or crossover.
This is your fan fiction.
with the Addams family, who actually made their first animated debut on Scooby-Doo.
Whoa,
They
really?
eventually had an animated series after.
I believe John Astin was doing the voice of Gomez Adams on this episode.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or is Casey Kasem trying to sound like Gomez Adams, but just sounding like Casey?
He could have been. But I remember it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also mostly remember it because this is where Kermit the Frog got his start in the Muppet movie, where he was in the Okefenokee swamp.
Oh.
And Dom DeLuise came, paddling up to him and offered him, a chance to be rich and famous and make millions of people happy. And it's also just the best word to say.
Oh, it's good.
Okefenokee.
Yeah.
It's impossible to spell.
Yeah.
But when you think of Florida as a big state, so much of it is just dominated by like a weird swamp and a weird river ways, and it's just like all flooded and just it's a very strange place geographically. We kind of talked about it earlier. It's kind of separated from other states. The Okefenokee swamp part of it is in Georgia.
Oh, it
and
is?
then
Okay.
the other part is in Florida. It kind of binds those two states together, but also kind of like the northern part of Florida seems really weird.
So there was a Native American tribe, perhaps, that came up with the word Okefenokee?
I would assume.
Okay.
I didn't do any major research other than
Was there a musician
looking up about
called
Kermit
like
the Frog.
Hazy Fantasy or something like that? Like
Yeah.
Okefenokee,
Okay,
would they
sure.
hang out? Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
if they have a song about Okefenokee.
Okay.
Michael, I thought you were going to go with this. The episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where Krang accidentally sends a canister of the mutant ooze to the Okefenokee swamp and turns 4 frogs into Teenage Mutant Ninja Frogs.
Are you talking about Genghis Frog? And
Yes, Attila the Frog. And also Rasputin the Mad Frog and Napoleon Bonafrog. That seems like that was a bad backdoor pilot idea that
Michael's
just never
nice
went
try
anywhere.
face just kind of came out. Maybe you're talking about Genghis Khan Frog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja
Okay,
Turtles back in my day.
Pretty great.
Which aspect are you talking about? The cartoony aspect that is the setting for Walt Kelly's Pogo, or you're talking about the real Okefenokee?
I think he's talking about the real swamp.
I didn't know it was a
Although
real
it's
swamp.
possibly a state of mind.
Like Valley High.
Yeah, being
Florida itself is a state of mind.
being a swamper is a state of mind. I mainly remember it now because of all the. Remember they had a bunch of wildfires a few years ago, and like you could
The water was on fire.
literally
the black water was on fire.
how can a swamp catch fire?
Yeah,
It's
good
in
question.
the water, for God's sake.
Florida finds a way.
Florida finds a way. Well, swamp gas. Is there swamp gas?
Sure.
Do you think the people from there say, "Yeah, I'm from the OF"?
No.
People just going to nod. Yeah.
I doubt they say that.
Okay.
Very likely.
The
Jeff,
the Oaks, they call it.
Yeah.
Jeff,
It's been rebranded.
what's your third choice?
Okay. My third choice is that's my fourth choice. My third choice is Walt Disney World. It was the backdrop to the romantic boy meets girl meet cute of my marriage to my beautiful, wonderful wife, because she was an employee of the Disney's Pleasure Island, which sounds like a porn place.
Oh, really?
but it was a kind of a recreational entertainment nightclub type thing that was about a decade-long experiment.
Oh, right. Pleasure Island, because of Jiminy Cricket and
Pinocchio,
right?
Yeah, and the
Okay.
Lost Boys.
I know this one. It's a Disney thing I know.
Okay, so Walt Disney World, I find fascinating from an architectural, industrial psychology, storytelling standpoint, because like Las Vegas, it's this big entertainment complex that is compelling people to come to spend all their money on a plane ticket, to come spend all their money on a hotel, to spend what remains of that money. No, they don't have any money anymore. They're putting on a credit card to go visit the parks and to buy overpriced food. And they leave there feeling like they were rewarded and given this wonderful experience, like they were lucky enough to have done all that. And I think it's the power of storytelling with SeaWorld, with Universal, and with specifically Walt Disney World, which I find fascinating. I just love that Florida is this blank slate where they can take Okefenokee Swamp, fill it with cement, and then build a theme park on it. And I find that fascinating.
As a 100% pure Californian, Disney World seems scary to me.
Does it really?
It seems too big.
Too much Disney.
Like
too much
I like going to Disneyland and
get in and out in a day.
Yeah, it feels not quite precious, but it feels like I can comprehend it. Disney World seems like, the big castle is like 5 times as big as the Sleeping Beauty castle at Disneyland or Snow White's castle. I don't even know
what
which
I feel
one.
like it's the comparison is for me is Disneyland is the 13 original colonies. Walt Disney World is the United States. It's this place that somebody dreamt up and somebody said we can take this idea of America,
we can make it bigger
and make it bigger.
It's supersized. Yeah, it is. It is Disneyland on steroids.
Yeah.
Is what I always have
more drugs. More
it.
drugs getting involved here.
It's Florida.
Yeah.
I thought it was appropriate.
It's the size of San Francisco. The parking lot, you could put Disneyland into the parking lot and still have room for 500 more cars. Epcot, that giant golf ball, is 180 feet tall, weighs 16 million pounds. There's just the audacity of America is right there, and also remember those little sketcher things where you can sketch the guy's face, and if you don't like it, you lift up the plastic and draw it again. That's what Walt Disney World is. Like, if something's not working, they tear that sucker down and put something more compelling, more profitable in there. 48 million people visit Walt Disney World alone, not counting Universal to SeaWorld or whatever, annually. And people come from all over the world. Here in Disney, we are in Southern California, and then a Disneyland resort. 50% of the people at Disneyland Resort at any given time are Southern California residents who consider that their backyard. It's part of our annual, if not multiple times a year, mecca. At Walt Disney World, they come more than half the people at any given time are from another country. So
Walt Disney World always struck me as like a vacation unto itself.
Yeah,
like you're going to go to Walt Disney World. If you're going to Disney World, you're planning 4 or 5 days. This is your full week. Our giant this is our big vacation of the year. We're going to Disney World.
Yeah.
Maybe if you have a day or two, you'll see all the other theme parks that have kind of sprung up around it. Universal, whatever else is out there. But it feels like that's the destination long-term vacation. Disneyland is where you come and it's like maybe you're there for a couple of days, a long weekend at the most. I can't imagine getting more than 3 days really out of Disneyland at one time. I think you would just kind of seen everything.
You can do the park in a day. You can do both sides of Disneyland and California Adventure in a day and feel
you gotta
pretty
hustle.
Yeah, you gotta hustle.
Yeah, but it's possible.
Doable.
When a couple of weekends ago, actually, Emily and I went to Universal Studios here, and it was packed, right? And it was like right on the edge of like Halloween Horror Nights, and we were just talking just casually about like who comes, like do people come to LA just to go to Universal? And I was like, oh no, that's just a part of your week here in Southern California. Like you come to LA, I would assume, and go to Disneyland, and then another day you go to Universal, then you go to the beach one day, you walk along, Melrose or Hollywood. Like those are parts of your vacation. Disney World seems
your
like
vacation.
you said, you're there to do that thing only, and then you fly out and go back to, St. Louis or whatever.
Yeah, and Disneyland seems quaint.
Yeah.
In a way that I've always thought of Walt Disney World as being sort of, and to your point, Jeff, maybe purpose-driven for maximum entertainment fun.
Yeah.
Versus Disneyland sort of feels to me like a lot of your enjoyment of Disneyland comes from the fact that it's Disneyland and it's been there these rides have been here for some of them 50, 60 years. And you feel like you're part of this history of Disneyland. I don't know that you have that at Disney World, having never gone. It feels like maybe you go there more to be wowed by all the cool new stuff that they have there.
Yeah. There are some things that are charmingly dated, and for me, it's kind of funny that those things stand out in Epcot more profoundly, because Epcot is the future as imagined by somebody in 1967. So that feels very charmingly dated there. But yeah, there is for me, the nostalgia is what you experienced as a place that harkens back to, or so fans of Disney and Disney parks kind of are here chapter and verse of how Walt hired Imagineers and architects who would create an experience that is uniquely familiar for people. Nobody living experienced what it was like to walk down the main street of a American city in 1905.
Right.
But when you walk down Main Street at Disneyland or Walt Disney World or Tokyo Disney or wherever, you feel this comfort. There's something very familiar about this place that might as well be the surface of the moon. Because
it does not exist.
It does not exist. But you'll see a pierced cholo kid and his girlfriend walk down that street, and they are home, man.
Just like you would see in 1905.
Just like in 1905.
Hey, Jeff, as our resident Disneyologist, if that's a thing, why was it Orlando? Was it just literally where he could find the biggest parcel of land?
It was from a climate standpoint often offered the most days of sunny weather.
Oh, on the East Coast.
Yeah, so they considered things like, for a long time, they're considering St. Louis because its proximity, I think, to as a central place in the U.S.
And wasn't he from Missouri?
He's from Marceline, Missouri. But yeah, I think it was its centrality that was its biggest geographical advantage. People could take a flight from just about anywhere. And for a while, they were even thinking about building parks in cruise ships that would go around from one place to another and go to where the sunny weather was.
Huh.
So yeah, it's kind of bizarre. But yeah, Disney hired a guy who hired a guy to create all these phony companies, or real companies, to buy up small lots of land that'll happen to be strategically adjacent to each other. And only then did they pull back the mask and reveal that they were all working for the Walt Disney Company.
Fascinating.
So I find it fascinating, but let me reinforce that the reason I chose this was it was the backdrop to the courtship of my wife and I. We had this long-distance relationship. Each time I'd come into town, we'd go to a new theme park, and it was like a never-ending fun montage from movie.
What was she doing at Pleasure Island? What was her cast role?
She was a cast member in the Comedy Warehouse, a zany comedy club.
Okay.
And
did they do wacky Disney improv?
They did what was surprisingly adult improv, or entertaining improv, in which they, through using entendre and other things, were able to hint at things that they could not say out loud. So.
That's interesting to me, because I know with Disneyland, like even something like the Jungle Cruise, which someone like Steve Martin has said that was the main Jungle Cruise, one of the main Jungle Cruise ride operators. So it's one of the guys he really learned comedy about.
Oh yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't do their own material on that. It's everyone more or less has the same pattern. It's how you present it, and maybe if you want to say anything off script, I think you have to get it approved.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I believe that's correct.
Uh-huh.
So that's interesting to me that at Walt Disney World, it's almost like this sort of, it's not almost like not canon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not official sort of like Disneyland where everything is hermetically sealed.
Yeah.
Like you said that it's 1905 everywhere, and it's all kind of like this hermetic sort of like everything is perfect in its place.
On script, yeah.
It feels like Walt Disney World maybe is a little bit more loosey-goosey from that standpoint.
This venue, Pleasure Island, was an entertainment complex that had dance clubs and bars and things like that served alcohol. So there was a little bit more adult approach to the entertainment. So yeah,
and they had, I believe, they had legalized prostitution for a couple of years.
That's right.
In the 70s.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, Michael. This is the last chance you're going to have to make a pick. Until next week.
That's right. My last choice. I wanted to end on kind of a high note. But I also,
but
it's Florida, so
no. I wanted to end on a high note, and I have a song by a band called Animal Collective called Floridada that I guarantee Richard is going to hate.
Oh, sweet.
Well, good timing for it then, Michael. Shall we listen to a little bit of it? That's enough. So, you giving me crap about John Zorn?
God, Animal Collective is great.
Being weird.
No. John Zorn isn't weird.
Defend yourself.
He's bad.
Oh, okay.
It's a big difference.
This, on the other hand,
that's a big difference.
This, on the other
Splitting
hand,
hairs.
is Beatles 67.
That's right. Animal Collective is a very strange band. That they're kind of pop, kind of absurdist, kind of what's a good way to describe them?
Dada?
Kind of Dada.
Perhaps?
Yes. And one of the singers, Avi Ter, was driving through Los Angeles, and he was listening to the radio, and on the radio they were talking about all the crazy shit that happens in Florida. And he was listening to a segment that was called like Dumb Things People Are Doing in Florida. And he was a guy that was like, it's kind of like, basically Florida Man stuff that we were talking about. And he was kind of like, I grew up kind of going to Florida, and Florida is like a crazy place, but it's crazy because of its diversity, and crazy because you can do anything, and crazy because of that's just how charming it is. Like, that's just like, it's weird, but it's like, it can be a good weird because it doesn't have these sort of boundaries, and you can kind of be who you are. And the song is a celebration of that, but then kind of, it's called Floridada, and it's a little Dadaistic. It's it's kind of about breaking down the usual walls of things and kind of getting into being absurd. And the music is like, it's this back and forth between the two singers, and like the entire album is kind of like this, or a lot of their songs are like this, where it's this call and response sort of thing, and it gets confusing, and you don't know what the lyrics are at times. And I think Richard said he was going to look them up, and it's just like, it's almost like the stream of thought of describing how beautiful like Florida is, and also describing the people, and it's just very visual, and the music video for it too is just really insane to watch. And it like fits right in, like it kind of looks like a screensaver. It's like these two giant things that are like these colorful things that are kind of like having sex and then like breaking. It's very strange. But wonderful. But anyway, I wanted to kind of acknowledge that even though you can kind of make fun of Florida at times, it's very easy to, and
so we just spent about a half hour or so doing it.
That its eclecticism should also be kind of honored and talked about and kind of admired for what it is. When some states can be a little one note, Florida is all of the notes.
There's something to be said first. I mean, look, we don't talk about Delaware Man because there are no Delaware men. There's nothing specific about Delaware or unique or interesting.
Yeah.
Florida, if nothing else, is incredibly interesting.
Yes.
It's got that going for it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you would appreciate, Richard, is the bridge of the song.
Yeah.
Is all about a bridge.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a bridge about a bridge. Yeah.
Is it about, what is the bridge over? What type of water would you say that the bridge is over? Calm or troubled? Right on the nose with that joke. Jeff, what's your final one?
Let me save this for you assholes. So,
Wow.
My
Please,
name-
Mark. I'm going to write that down.
My
in
name-
the
That
notes.
down as...
my name is Jeff. I'm here to save the
Jeff
show.
calls Richard specifically an asshole.
I
please-
don't believe that's how
Please
that
write,
works.
No, it was-
please write that down
I believe
in
that's
your,
how that
in your
works.
judging.
No.
Listen, I got to get any
I'll say.
sort of points I can score.
I don't know who it was for, but it's not for you, the audience. I have. I've been confronting the fact that my next birthday will be. I'll be 49, and the birthday after that, I will be 5. I'll be fit.
Hard as a rock. That's what you're going to say. You'll be hard as a rock.
I'll be hard as a rock because I'm gonna.
He's retiring, you guys.
I'm gonna age like one of those guys in the airline magazine. The guy with the abs, the old guy with the abs, and
I like that you're only going to be abs.
no abs, and no biceps or chest, just abs. So I am not looking forward to being old because I won't get to ever stop working because I haven't saved anything. I don't even think I've started my 401k yet.
It's just a 4K.
It's just a 4K. But when I went to visit my in-laws in Florida at the Port Charlotte Retirement Village, which is my fourth choice, the Port Charlotte Retirement Village, I was fucking inspired because this was Christmas. We were there and they had a Christmas parade, which means they decorate their golf carts. This is okay. Port Charlotte Retirement Village is, I don't know how many acres, 1 acre or 2 acres. There's like probably 40 pre-manufactured homes in this retirement village.
Is it on the Okefenokee swamp by any chance?
It's near Fort Myers, I think. But it's so rad. I think there's probably 60. Oh, it's about 60.
We got bingo. We got cards.
Oh,
We got
they do.
shuffleboard.
They have all that stuff. When I was there, they had bingo and cards and stuff like that.
Pretty much.
But they
old people
have
stuff.
a rec center where you can come, and I think they have a pool table and ping
Mhm.
pong, and they bring in like a guy who entertain people with old songs on like a digital keyboard on Friday night.
Oh,
and
nice.
Stuff. And
Is there any canasta action
I'm
happening?
sure it is.
Sure they get some
Nasty canasta.
Nasty canasta, yeah.
And my mother-in-law is the social director there.
Oh,
and
wow.
She plans all these fun parties there.
He's gotten in.
It's so rad, you guys.
So,
And
so Jeff, can we do a live episode from there?
I would love to. They would love for us to come there.
We
I'm
could
sure.
do the Rushmore of the Golden Girls.
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah,
all kinds of
fantastic.
waterways there, all kinds of rivers and or lakes and things like that. When I was there, they had the holiday parade, and they decorate the golf carts with lights and things like that. And then there was one guy who was like, he was retired, but you can tell he was probably a drug dealer or something in his younger years. He decorated his cart with like aliens, and it had like an alien theme to it. He was definitely like an aging hippie. It was like if George Carlin was at a
sure,
retirement
yeah.
home. So I remember thinking, like, you can let your freak flag fly here, man.
Like Tommy Chong really had it
yeah,
going on.
yeah,
right?
yeah. It was like that. Like you can retire, but you don't have to be like all fuddy-duddy there.
There are two places that one in the United States generally retires to. It's either to Florida,
Yeah.
or you just summer or winter in Florida. And the other place is
Arizona.
Arizona. What two? I
Because it's
pretty,
hot.
I'm
It's
pretty
the
sure
weather.
Arizona is weird too, right?
Yeah, well, it's the weather. It's because when you get older, you just cold weather hurts.
Yeah.
So, and also, why would you want to live in cold weather? Fuck it.
Do you to retire to Florida? Do you have to be an East Coaster or part of a certain east
Yeah.
of a certain
I think
latitude?
there's a
or
lot
long-
of people they have at the Port Charlotte Retirement Center. They have clubs, people who are from Boston, people from New York, and there's a lot of Red Sox, a lot of East Coast Yankees flags and things like that. So I think it's on the radar for the East Coast.
I think
people.
technically it depends where, Jeff, I hate to burst your bubble, where
Shit.
your baseball team
yeah
does their
summers,
spring training.
the grapefruit.
That's where
thing.
you're allowed to go. So
Oh.
so I don't know
Oh, really?
I think that's the law. Who do you root for?
Kansas City Royals.
Oh,
They're an Arizona team. I think
Are
they're
they?
like in surprise.
yeah. Yeah,
So
sorry.
you're in Arizona. Sorry.
Oh,
you
shit.
got to move to Arizona.
Okay.
Right
All right.
now.
Well, that was fun.
right now.
Well, let me just tell you, when I was there, what the big draw is. I am a person who is a gourmand, meaning I will eat fucking anything, and it doesn't matter. And I prefer junk food, and I prefer chains. And within walking distance from with a walker of the Port Charlotte Retirement Center is a McDonald's, Wendy's, Cracker Barrel, Waffle House, Taco Bell. And then when you want to have a little coffee, and then, there's an Applebee's. There's a Starbucks right across the street.
I, for one, just want to welcome our new sponsor onto the show, the Port Charlotte Retirement Village.
Port Charlotte.
Yes.
So use the offer code of
Rushmore?
Rushmore, just say present whenever you sign up. And just go to .org, and then you'll be great. You're there.
Start planning now.
Yeah.
Awesome. By the way, you know what happens at these retirement villages a lot?
A lot of banging.
A lot of banging. I was just going to say that.
Knocking of boots and clacking of dentures.
There has been a rise in STDs at senior homes.
Oh, wow.
Which, if you're 80 and you got chlamydia,
So
that's really the least of your problems at that point. Little crabs or a little blood coming out of your
yeah.
you
What
know?
are you gonna? Who are you gonna impress? We've determined that Florida has low SATs and high STDs.
I believe that's their state motto, Jeff. I think
That's
it's
on the flag.
Although I believe it's in Latin.
So I remember, I know this as the judge, but how do I get, as a participant, I forget, how do I get my prize?
We will mail it to you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Care of the Port Charlotte
Port
Retirement
Charlotte.
Village.
Okay.
Just look out for
You
it in
just have to
15,
go there.
20 years.
Let me get the sound effects handy, because I'm ready for you to.
That's right. Well, before you do that,
Okay.
I do believe I still get my choice if I would like to submit one of my own.
Yeah, I used to do that as judge.
Yeah, remember back when you used to do that, Jeff?
Used to try.
Back in the days of like
Back when I cared.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
And this is particularly for Michael. The Miami Marlins, their baseball stadium, and this maybe ties a little bit into your choice, which is one of the ones that we're going to talk about here, of Art Deco stadiums. They really tried to go Art Deco with that thing.
Sure.
They crapped that thing up real good.
Fart Deco.
Oh my God.
That thing is horrendous.
I just lost when he said fart deco.
Jeff, have you seen this thing yet? Have you ever seen the Miami Marlins stadium?
No, I'll look online right now.
They have, among the things they tried to do is they tried to have an aquarium running along the backstop behind home plate.
Okay.
But if I remember correctly, they had problems because the fish were getting like sick and dying because foul balls would hit the water and throw them off.
Oh.
But also, it looks like the Fontainebleau hotel had like just threw a little baseball stadium in behind it. They've got like this giant in center field. They've got like a 80-foot tall statue that's like all day-glow Art Deco colors and has like a giant marlin statue, and it's just gaudy and awful and tacky and absolutely perfect
For Florida.
for Miami.
Okay.
You couldn't have had if you're doing like a Sim City type game where you had the ability to build like a baseball stadium. And you said, okay, it's Miami. We need to make one that's Miami. How could we fuck this up? That's how you would make a fucked up Miami baseball stadium.
It's kind of like when you're at Disneyland or Disney World and you're at It's a Small World. And, the clock tower goes off on the 15-minute every half hour. And then like on the hour, it has a big, extravaganza.
Yeah.
It goes off in a similar way when someone from the Marlins hits a home run. Like this thing starts to animate and things start to twirl, and then it's just
This looks like the type of slot machine that a lady in a velvet jumpsuit would sit down at.
Yes, it does. Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. It looks like like something that
Or like they got the architect from Cheesecake Factory. Like, well, you want Greek columns? Yeah. How about Egyptian things?
Sure thing.
All of it.
All right, so it's time for the charts. Does Fred back there in the control room have the?
He'll have to add
the
that later
soundtrack.
'cause it's not working right now. So.
Fred, what are you doing here?
All right, well.
Okay, all right. So first one, Florida Man. You both chose that. That deserves a point.
Okay.
There's nothing. I mean, that's the first thing I. Whoa!
Oh, shit!
Whoa,
It happened.
Fuck!
Yeah. Okay.
I think I just got my hand smashed by a mallet.
That
like
knocked a molar out of my face. Okay. Okay.
All right,
Florida
so that's
man.
the first one, Florida man.
Yeah.
That's a point for each of you. Second one, I'm going to go with the Art Deco of Miami, as we discussed here. I think it sums up everything that's kind of gaudy and weird and tacky and beautiful about Miami.
Easy pull, but I respect that.
I feel like I'm being influenced here a little bit. I don't think I like it. I was gonna know. The next one is Walt Disney World. So that's one for Jeff, I think.
Having you at the controls is like having like one of those rotten kids playing Monopoly when you're like, how did you get $13,000 in your bank? I don't know.
My hands have been stealing from the bank.
Don't you remember when I landed on Boardwalk and Park Place and got these hotels? All right, so the last one, I'm going with the Port Charles Retirement Village because they are our new sponsors.
Nice.
And we should be nice to them.
We
Make sure you go to port.org/.gov and sign up and get a free 10%. Get your first month free if you use the code Rushmore at. All right. So this has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I think we have thoroughly landscaped Florida, kind of covered the whole thing.
49 more states to go, guys.
Yeah, next year, the Rushmore of Montana. It's been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Michael.